Coming up on Network Africa. The International Atomic Energy Agency warns about tons of uranium missing in Libya. South Africa's Economic Freedom Fighters Party calls for national protests over Ramaphosa and the struggling economy. And President of Malawi families hold mass funeral for victims of Storm Freddy. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Joke Rogers, Harry Lagos. It's explosive news coming out of Libya, where the International Atomic Energy Agency is trying to locate about 2.5 tons of uranium that has gone missing from a site not under government control. The UN watchdog says its inspectors found that 10 drums containing uranium had disappeared when they visited the undisclosed site a few days ago. They are now trying to establish what happened and how the nuclear material was removed. Inspectors fear the uranium could pose a radiological risk as well as nuclear security concerns. They had intended to visit the location last year, but the trip had to be postponed because of fighting between different Libyan militias. Well, a drill in Ghana's Volta River over the weekend was carried out during the first ever maritime exercises organized by the U.S. military under its long-running Flintlock program to bolster the skills of West African forces. The sea-based training is in the first half of March, culminated with soldiers holding their guns aloft as they braved neck-high waves before storming a beach resort to defuse a staged hostage crisis as military bigwigs and diplomats watched from nearby.
Admiral Milton Sands, commander of the U.S. Special Operations Command for Africa, says the program is expanded to help coastal nations in the region cope with maritime threats such as piracy and illegal fishing.
Piracy, a real issue in the Gulf of Guinea. Another one is illegal, unregulated, and unauthorized fishing. So we see a variety of different countries fishing in here and really pulling material resources, fish and protein, from the coastal West Africa shores without permission. I think that one is a significant one that we're really trying to work with our partners to get our arms around and to slow down. And then there's a variety of other threats, criminal threats, human trafficking, drugs, other things that are coming in through the maritime environment.
Around 350 troops take part in the drills, including servicemen from Ivory Coast, Ghana and Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea. The area has become a global piracy hotspot in recent years, although cases have fallen there since 2021, according to UN Security Council. Meanwhile, Commodore Godwin Blessing, commander of Ghana's Naval Training Command, said curbing illegal fishing had become a top priority, citing a lack of resources to deal with the foreign boats stealing from Ghana's waters.
I think they know about our regulations, but they somehow try to flout those regulations because of our enforcement capabilities. That is one of the biggest problems. If we had enough ships that are out there and they knew that we are monitoring the place, we'll be able to curb the situation.
Illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing is spread in West Africa, sapping an estimated $9.4 billion per year through illicit financial flows, according to a 2022 report by the Financial Transparency Coalition of non-governmental organizations. On the top 10 companies they found involved in IUU fishing in the region, 8 were Chinese, and a third of all vessels sported Chinese flags.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is expressing a shared aspiration with Ethiopia to rejoin the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. a U.S. trade program as it implements a peace deal in the Tigray region. Mr. Blinken was speaking during a visit to the country.
Moving in the right direction. Thank you. We actually hosted a ministerial meeting of AGOA during the Africa Leaders Summit in December, and we're very much looking forward to planning an AGOA forum next year. But the bottom line is, certainly we share the aspiration of Ethiopia returning to AGOA, and as it continues to implement the cessation of hostilities agreement, it's clearly moving in the right direction.
South Africa's second largest opposition party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, says it's all systems go for a national protest planned for Monday, the 20th of March, around the country. The planned protest, which has drawn condemnation from government and some other bodies in the country, is to demand the restoration of regular power supply, reduction of unemployment figures, and the resignation of President Cyril Ramaphosa over the farm theft scandal still hanging over him. The Commander-in-Chief of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Julius Malema, has briefed the media to clear the air of his party's call for all businesses to shut during the protest. He says it was not a call for violence, but caution in case things turn awry. Mr. Malema insists that this is a protest to secure the country's future.
We want a good future. On the 20th of March, we have to shut down this country to show the whole world that we are concerned about the state of affairs. We can't fold our arms. But where are the doomsayers, all of those clever blacks, fools masquerading as clever people, who said, how can he announce a shutdown 2 months before shutdown? It will never happen. It's here now. They're shaking. Protest has got no formula. It's a protest. We have no permit. If you're going to ask for permit, we don't have permit. We're going to protest. We're not going to march. And to protest, we require no permit from anyone. It is our constitutional right. Enough is enough. That's why we took this decision to put our bodies on the streets. If they want to do anything, let them do it on the 20th of March. We're not scared of them. We will defend the defenseless masses of our people with our bodies. Ramaphosa's government is leading to economic damage. With such high unemployment, with the economy collapsing, with businesses closing, with electricity not being provided, you want to turn around and blame the EFF for that? No, man. No. It's going to become worse if we don't stop Ramaphosa now. So if it goes beyond the 20th of March, it's no longer EFF-led. Now the society has taken over. And that will be a confirmation of what we warned you about, that there will be an unled revolution in South Africa. No one can stop it. No army can stop it. No police can stop it. Who can stop this? Ramaphosa can stop it by stepping down. And that's how Ramaphosa can stop the economic damage, by the way. If Ramaphosa stepped down, we want the leadership that will engage in a program that will recover our economy as a country.
Meanwhile, the president of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan, is on a state visit to South Africa. Her visit will include the attendance of a business forum of both countries and signing of 2 more memorandums of understanding. Both countries share a history of support and mutual interests and have over 15 sectoral agreements and memorandum of understanding. Tanzania supported many South African leaders in exile during the anti-apartheid struggle.
As we consolidate our bilateral relations, we build on this solidarity and friendship because it is this that has formed a very solid foundation to our relationship. This has enabled South Africa to participate in the African Liberation Heritage Program, hosted by Tanzania. From our side, we have instituted the South African chapter of the project called Resistance and Liberation Heritage Route. It is aimed at commemoration, celebration, education, and preservation of a crucial era of our history. Our rich history connects us as Africans and contributes towards strengthening people-to-people exchange. We believe that this state visit will further strengthen the bilateral, political, and economic relations between our two countries and enhance the work of our binational commission. We must use this opportunity to explore further areas of cooperation.
So we still have to, to see that our youth still holds this memory and they know exactly our countries, where are we coming from and why are we here to date. So that's the firm foundation from which our excellent relations sprouted and continue to blossom to this day. And I have a firm conviction that this second session of the Binational Commission will offer us yet another opportunity to broaden and deepen our relations. Just to take you quickly on the political situation in Tanzania, we are doing okay. We are still working on the reconciliation with the opposition parties, the so-called opposition parties. We are doing the reforms in various areas and try to rebuild our nation. So we are working with them.
Elsewhere, search teams in Gabon have recovered the bodies of 15 more passengers of a ferry that sank off the West African country's coast last week, bringing the provisional death toll up to 21. The Esther Miracle ferry was carrying 161 passengers from Libreville to Port Gentil when it sank close to the coastal village of Nioni on March the 9th. Authorities confirmed 6 deaths on Monday and were still searching for 31 missing people. Air Force planes and diving teams had been sent to conduct daily search operations. Head of Rescue Operations Bekele Mayong said on State's TV that 124 people had been rescued and 21 confirmed dead after 15 more bodies were fished off from the shipwreck. He adds that ambulances have taken the bodies to mortuaries and search operations are ongoing. Ferries are often overloaded in Gabon, and there are unconfirmed reports the ship was weighed down with cars, livestock, and other merchandise. President Lazarus Chakwera joined Malawian families yesterday as they held an emotional funeral service to remember and bury the victims of tropical cyclone Freddy. Freddy tore through southern Africa for the second time in a month over the weekend and was still causing heavy rain on Wednesday, hampering relief efforts. Malawi's Disaster Management Department said in a statement that the death toll from the second hit rose to 225 from 190, with 707 people injured and 41 still missing. The UN Refugee Agency also said in a statement that it was deeply concerned by the devastation and impact of the tropical cyclone, which affected over 16,000 people across 10 districts in Malawi's southern region. The president is calling on the international community for support as the toll continues to rise.
I am personally so devastated. Sometimes when you just pass by these many caskets, you cannot help but shed tears because loved ones, one whole family, completely wiped out, and so many others that have been touched. You feel sad that we are at the receiving end of climatic changes that, you feel helpless. What has happened in this incident is nothing that we were prepared for, even if we had advance notice, because this type of things can shake the core even of your being. And we are using hope as our currency to encourage those that have survived, that we will not leave them alone, because we are trusting you as our international neighbors to come through so Malawians can continue with that hope.
Welcome back. We're in Mozambique now, where President Filipe Nyusi has announced the immediate allocation of close to $3.4 million for reconstruction in the aftermath of Cyclone Freddy. The cyclone made landfall over the weekend for the second time in a month, and the country has received more than a year's worth of rainfall in the past 4 weeks. At least 53 people have died, while hundreds of thousands are at risk of a humanitarian crisis, according to local agencies. President Nyusi said the amount would be spent on rebuilding schools and destroyed infrastructure, but acknowledged it was not enough. The government has reduced docking charges for ships carrying emergency products meant for the affected communities. The president also extended the terms of a commission mandated to work on national recovery after the extreme weather conditions. Dozens of Burkina Faso nationals in Tunisia have been repatriated back home in the wake of remarks weeks ago by President Kais Saied against sub-Saharan African migrants. Mr. Saied said the migrants were part of a conspiracy to change the country's demographic composition, which triggered racially motivated abuse and violence against them. On Wednesday, 64 passengers arrived at Burkina Faso's capital on a government-chartered plane. They were welcomed by emotional relatives along with some government officials. One of the Minister Kara Morocco Traore is quoted as saying it was the government's responsibility to look out for the security and well-being of its citizens. He said this was the first contingent of people to arrive and that other groups would return through other arrangements. The UN peacekeeping mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, through its child protection section, is educating South Sudanese uniformed actors on how to end and prevent grave violations against children. With South Sudan entering a critical phase in the implementation of its 2018 peace deal, the world's newest nation needs to ensure it upholds the rights of every citizen, including children. This would ensure that South Sudanese armed groups will finally be removed from what is known as the list of shame.
It is very true that we still have a lot of schools under military occupations for whatever reasons. Central Equatorial State alone, we've got a report from our partners of more than 30 schools that are still under military occupation. As UNMISS, we've done a lot to get all these schools vacated by the forces. We've had a lot of engagement with the military commanders. We've had a lot of engagement with the community leaders, the paramount chiefs and sub-chiefs, and even the county commissioners to get all these schools vacated. As per the international humanitarian law, or the Convention of the Child Rights clearly indicates that the soldiers should not occupy school, should not use the school for any military purpose, and it should not be within the proximity of the school. So the fact that the soldiers are closer to that school, it is in a violation of this law.
A string of attacks on civilians in North Kivu have displaced more than 100,000 people and claimed dozens of lives in the last week. This is part of a report by UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric in a brief to reporters in New York. According to him, the mission also reported that since early March, the ADF rebel group have reportedly killed several in the Beni territory in North Kivu province.
Turning to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, our humanitarian colleagues are telling us that a string of attacks on civilians in North Kivu have displaced more than 100,000 people and claimed dozens of lives in the last week. According to information given to us by our humanitarian partners, more than 50,000 people displaced from Rutshuru found safety in Kibirizi, while some 55,000 people from Assisi fled to neighboring villages, as well as to Goma and towards Minova in South Kivu. Our peacekeeping colleagues in the country report that they've sheltered 95 children at their base in Sake. That's including 50 children from an orphanage. This happened following weekend clashes in the area between the Congolese Defense Forces and the M23 armed group. 4 civilians died during the clashes and at least 5 others were injured. Peacekeepers provided medical assistance to the injured at their base and later evacuated them to Goma. Children were also transferred to a center for children in Goma. The mission also reported that since early March, the ADF rebel group has reportedly killed at least 97 civilians in Beni in the North Kivu territory, in North Kivu province. As we mentioned last week, due to ongoing joint operations between the Ugandan and Congolese defense forces, peacekeepers, UN peacekeepers do not have access to the area south of the town of Beni, where suspected ADF members perpetrated these attacks.
The Kenya Meteorological Department has advised Kenyans to plant drought-resistant crops due to expected depressed rains. The department's Climate Services Assistant Director, Richard Mwita, advised farmers to consider beans, cassava and vegetables rather than maize, the staple food. According to him, the level of moisture in the soil is normally 0. Although there may be storms at the start, they may not cancel out the deficit. Mr. Mwita also advised Kenyans to harvest water during the rainy season, with a number of regions such as Western Kenya expected to experience rains from mid-March. At least 2.5 million children are out of school amid Kenya's worst drought in 40 years. The numbers of Kenyans in need of food aid has also risen by nearly 2 million since July 2022. That's according to government estimates. Some sports now. FIFA President Gianni Infantino took part in a friendly football tournament with the leader of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, a day before being re-elected to his position as the head of World Soccer's governing body. Mr. Infantino is standing unopposed in FIFA's presidential election, which takes place in the Rwanda capital of Kigali at its annual Congress. The Swiss had led FIFA since 2016 when he took over from Sepp Blatter, and under current rules could remain in place until 2031. Before the tournament, Mr. Infantino and Mr. Kagame renamed Kigali's stadium in honor of Brazil great Pelé.
Before the friendly tournament, Infantino and Kagame renamed Kigali's Nyamirambo Stadium in honor of Brazilian legend Pelé. After Pelé died at the end of last year, Infantino...
We're back in South Africa, where township boys have been practicing stunts with their old bikes. The spinning activity takes place in the east of Johannesburg as it brings crowds together and encourages young boys to stay away from crime and gang violence.
At the Wheels and Smoke Arena in the outskirts of Johannesburg, 15-year-old Nzakwe Ngwenya waited eagerly for his chance to show off his bike skills to a crowd of onlookers. Wearing denim shorts and a floppy purple hat, he pedaled fast towards a large metal can, spun around it on his front wheel, rolled backwards, and then planted his feet, arms raised triumphantly to the sound of whistles and cheers from the bleachers. His club, the 7K Stunt Bicycle Foundation, was invited for the first time to Rev Up Sunday, a monthly event that's usually reserved for car spinning, but has added a stunt bike exhibition for its younger participants.
I'm happy that we are now spinning in front of a crowd. We don't only spin in our township anymore, but we can now be seen by other people.
Spinning or drifting is a technique in a bike or car where you allow your back tires to lose traction with the ground as momentum propels you around a corner. Ngwenya, who lives with his grandmother and uncle, saved up his school spending money for 3 months to get the 2,500 rand needed to build his bike from spare parts.
What I love about spinning bikes is that when we're bored and not doing anything, we don't get into trouble, but we spin. I love that it makes me happy. One day, I want to see myself racing in Tour de France.
His club started during the COVID-19 when exercise was one of the only reasons people were allowed to leave their homes.
Well, that's it on the program today. Thank you for watching. I'm Dr. Rogers.